State did, and then a few hours later, Ole Miss had to do it against Missouri. But they did survive, and so we are still both on this path towards March.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a march toward March. It's like it feels a little bit more of an arduous journey than just a straight line march because of, well, they just Mississippi State's in better shape than Ole Miss is, right? I mean, conference record is exactly the same. That, Mississippi State has fewer overall wins than Ole Miss has, but they are in better shape because their metrics are better. Their net ranking is better. It's a
They have 2 wins against top 10 net teams. They've beaten Tennessee and Auburn, both of which are top 10.
Yeah, just a huge boost out of those two. I think we were onto something last week when we were talking about Ole Miss and their road to March, their road to the NCAA tournament being, if you get to 9-9, just you better make sure your antiperspirant works because you are going to be sweating. I mean, sweating. And without winning at least 2 games in Nashville, I don't know that it's good enough. I know that all season long, everybody has had Ole Miss in their projections as in the field. But when you think about the history of, okay, where do you need to be in terms of the net? I mean, if you're in the 60s, that's a big ask of the committee, and that's where Ole Miss has lived for most of the last month.
Yeah, because if they only get to 9, I mean, they either did not take advantage of what looks to be kind of a sputtering South Carolina team coming to your place on Saturday. It means you possibly lost to Missouri, possibly lost to Georgia. There's issues there because there'd either be not a good enough win or a bad loss mixed into your remaining resume paired with the metrics that don't exactly favor you right now. So 10 is absolutely still doable. But, man, so I'm glad we're starting with basketball because I think what happened in basketball is far more meaningful as of this moment than what happened in baseball. And we'll get to all of that as well, of course. We got 3 hours. But if Ole Miss plays the way they did on Saturday, on Wednesday in Starkville, they're getting beat by 20. Heck, everybody else in the league would have beaten Ole Miss on Saturday. They're lucky it was Missouri. And, they're not basketball-playing robots. They are human beings. Maybe, they got caught up in the fact that Missouri's as bad as they are and didn't take them seriously. Maybe they're tired. It's a grind of a long season, whatever the case may be. But there were times, Richard, you were calling the game. You got to see it closer than I did. But there was effort issues for Ole Miss. There were poor closeouts. There was one play in particular that I remember. Ole Miss turned it over at the top of the key, and the player that turned it over didn't even bother trying to get back and stop the transition, leading to an easy Missouri bucket. Things like that they did. Effort and body language I thought was awful, and they turned it on, and they won the game, which is important. But, man, if that manifests on Wednesday or if that manifests on Saturday, they're losing both of these games, and you probably can go ahead and write the book on the tournament at that point.
Yeah, I admit that I don't necessarily spend a ton of time looking, like when I'm broadcasting a game, looking at body language or, now if there's something that's glaring, like if you got a guy that, causes you to be drawn to that, doesn't like a foul that's called on him, and he slams the ball down. Let's say he gets teed up, and so now you're kind of keyed in on that, and you kind of keep more of an eye on him. Or if you have a superstar that gets benched, but just kind of in the flow of the game, it's like there's so much else that's going on that I feel like I have to get right that I'm not watching it. So you may have actually been in a better spot to see if it looked like a lack of effort. Because, frankly, from where I was, it was great because the game was interesting. The game was tight. There was a storyline of, wow, is Missouri – now, I understand if you're listening to this and you're like, Richard, you like Ole Miss and you went to school there, and what are you talking about? It was good. No. That hat gets taken off for a broadcast, and I put the I want a compelling game, I want good storylines hat on. And so you've got the storyline of, wow, on one hand, you've got this team that's fighting for its NCAA tournament life. And on the other hand, you have a winless team in the conference who's trying to just win a game. And you end up with a close game with the team that's not supposed to win, that's ahead. So from like a television standpoint, I thought that was really good. I thought Ole Miss did some good things. They made a significant adjustment at halftime that they probably should have made in a timeout in the first half. Ole Miss was making threes in the first half, and it's what kept them in the game. But at halftime, they had 0.0 free throw attempts. Not one. There's only one way to explain that, and it has nothing to do with guys in striped shirts. It is a full-on lack of aggression and not attacking the basket. I mean, you accidentally get 4 free throw attempts in a half. But, hey, Dad, they came out in the second half, and it was a different story, and they had like 30 second-half free throw attempts. And they were physical, and they attacked the basket, and they played downhill and only had, half a dozen or so three-point attempts in the second half. It was tale of two halves in the game.
And kind of a tale of two halves within the second half, because Missouri came out in the second half and pushed the lead out, and they looked like they were going to pull that off, and then all of a sudden Ole Miss just starts hitting shots and getting stops, and the game
and Missouri did
flipped
as
quickly. Exactly, they didn't hit shots, and the game just flipped as quickly as it came.
We should have done a better job with this on the broadcast. I'll take the blame on this. Missouri only hit 2 field goals in the last 9 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we did a good enough job pointing that out. But it's like, I mean, that is a really, really significant drought. So that